It's cold. It's cold in this garage, and the holidays are coming around, so I'm getting a little lazier, losing motivation, but I have to keep slapping myself and telling myself, don't stop that train. Especially because now it's solid-ish, right? It's riding. I've taken it out a couple times. I'm having a blast, but there's just still those final little pieces that I need to finish so I can just stop worrying about it and really check it off my list. And first thing first would be this water pump housing. As I've said before, it's starting to bubble a little bit. So I have purchased a replacement, some coolant to go with it. So should be simple enough. Let's start with that. Started with removing the hose clamps that's attached to both the radiator and the water pump. And I dumped it in the bucket, but I did an absolutely atrocious job in containing it in the bucket, so I had to put a towel down to, wipe the excess and catch whatever hasn't dropped yet. After that, I started removing all of the bolts around the water pump. It's just those couple bolts there, really not that hard, not that difficult. And then smart me realized that there's a drain bolt in the water pump that I should have taken off first thing first. Of course, I didn't do that. When I took it off, it didn't really make a difference. And there was another little tube going to the back, so pulled that off, and we were good to pull the whole unit out. That wasn't terrible. I just did the usual dummy error, and without I don't think that's even usual, but I didn't even use the drain bolt. I just undid that, let it dump from there, and started undoing all of that. So it worked. It dumped some of this coolant out, but it made a bit of a mess. Maybe if I used the drain bolt, it would have been fine. Who would have known? But anyways, got that off. Everything's looking pretty solid here. Here's the old one in comparison to the new one. New one is, new to me. Pretty nice and clean. This one looks pretty gunky, so glad I'm replacing it. Also, this kit came with this new fins fan, the thing to actually move the coolant around, but I think that's irrelevant. This looks pretty good. There's no damage to these fins. Everything's fine here to my untrained eye, so I'm just going to keep that one on. I don't think I need to replace it. Gonna feel good throwing this one in the trash. Time to put this one on. Pretty much the reverse process of what you just saw before. Not even pretty much. It literally is the reverse process of what you saw before. I started with putting all the bolts in. Let's see if I actually do a star pattern. Nope, I don't, but I guess it's okay because it worked out in the end. So got that on. I tilted the bike over a little bit more to drain the rest of the coolant because I forgot to do that earlier. And once I got the rest of it out, I just reattached the hose to the water pump with that clamp, and we were all done. Boom. Nice and simple. No more crud and flakiness here. Everything's good to go, so it seems. Finished tightening everything. Glad it wasn't that BS or I broke a bolt or something like that. Knock on wood. Now I gotta actually fill this up with that coolant over there and run the bike, let it idle, and top this back up, and then I have to fill this reservoir up. There's nothing in here when I was draining it, which is kind of a uh-oh. So this is all the radiator fluid, coolant. This is all the coolant that I had. Thankfully there was something in there, but pretty shitty of me to not note how how my coolant level is, especially with the amount of detail I went into doing the rest of this, right? I guess it's just something I overlooked. We're starting topping this off, and then doing this is annoying because I gotta take the side things off, the seat, prop the gas tank up, and then I can get into the coolant reservoir fill cap area. So before I do that, I'm just gonna fill this, start it up, let it run, air bleed it, and then make sure nothing around here is leaking. God, looks like yummy Kool-Aid or something like that. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. I don't think I even need this funnel. What? I don't know, I just got up to the bike, so I like shifted my nuts around or something. Honestly, it's more annoying getting to the coolant reservoir than I would like it to be. I feel like that's something that you should just be able to access really simply and easily. But here instead I had to prop the gas tank up, and then I could finally get to the coolant and just fill it with the coolant. Obviously, it's not hard, but just kind of annoying. Coolant and water pumps all done. Hard to tell because this isn't the most opaque reservoir, but it's at the full line. I let it run some more. I checked. I had a tiny little leak down here, but it's because I just didn't tighten this bolt as tight as the rest. So I fixed that. Now, before I bolt this tank on, actually I can probably bolt it on, doesn't matter. A minor thing I wanted to do was I need to put this fuse box back where it goes and not just let it hang loose. That would be onto this slot right here. That's where the fuse box is actually supposed to go. Well, near it. It's got these little slot guys right there. It goes onto that. So need to do that. And the kickstand switch over here, I need to remove. I'm not even using it because it's bypassed, so it's just, I guess, dead weight. I know it weighs less than an ounce, but why is it on there if it's not being used, right? I don't think I need to really film for that. I'll just check in after, I guess. I'll film if I deem it necessary. So this is a little weird. I was looking around here for somewhere to mount it, right? And I thought it would be on that flap. But it looks like you need to mount it kind of on its side through this guy and that guy, right? So I need two smaller plastic nubs to go into. And there's only one here, right there. And the rest is actually being taken up. And then it's just that barrier. So I was like, okay, let me look at this other one, since I still have it, to try to see what's going on here, right? And same concept. This is taken. That missing one has something here. And that guy's there as usual. But between these and the barrier, there's another one of those like two plastic prongs to put the fuse box on. And then the barrier is actually further back. It sits like here rather than here. So I was like, okay, maybe the fuse box sits behind the barrier on this side, right? No, doesn't seem like it. Yeah, I don't know. There just doesn't seem to be a place to actually mount it. So, oh well, I guess if you happen to know, I'd appreciate it. But I guess for now, I'll just keep it as it was. It never really bothered me. It was just one of those very minor things that could be improved, but I guess if there's nowhere for it to go, it'll just stay tucked in here as it always has. Since that's done, not really done, just I'm not going to do it. I now need to get rid of that kickstand switch, which is right here. I need to get rid of this guy. It's just those two bolts. Because this other one, there's no way I'm going back there right now, but the guy just removed it. It doesn't need to be in there since it's bypassed anyways. Up here, you can see that's where it's bypassed. So gotta get that guy off. But before I even get that guy off, I'm just gonna reassemble these two bikes. Finished up with this. It wasn't even plugged in because, well, it was bypassed right there anyways. So the wire was just hanging out here and it was running all down here, kind of tucked in the side here and just sticking out of those holes. Even though it's pointless. We don't need it anymore, so in the storage box it goes. And what next? Grips. That bike came with new grips, but obviously I swapped over everything. So I'd like to do the new grips too, since I'm here, and this guy is starting to, you can't tell, but it's starting to wear. So I've never done grips before. I'm gonna look up how to do it. I bought some grip glue. I mean, it's not rocket science. I'm sure you just remove it, glue, put it on, right? So, grips next. First thing first, just had to take off those bar end mirrors. And once I got that off, it was time to pull off the old grips, right? So I used this really tiny, thin, flathead screwdriver I had to just kind of shove it in. And that seemed to work out fine. I got it off the one side, and then I was able to get it off the throttle side with a little bit more work, but I did eventually get it off. Finished taking these off. I was worried that it wouldn't be a throttle tube, but there'd be like some sort of cables that use the actual grip to clamp it down, so when I pull it off, it would just go crazy. Thank God that's not the case. There's just an actual throttle tube, and here, well, it's just the metal, right? This entire bar right here. I didn't expect anything to be there. It's funny, you could actually ride it like this if you wanted to. That'd be super trashy. We're not gonna do that. That'd also be weird and uncomfortable. So I'm gonna try to clean off some of this old gunk, and then after that, we'll put on these, oh, that's the old grip, these new grips. This is why I wanted to replace them, just because they started to wear through in spots. And I already have these new grips, so we might as well do it while I'm on a roll and, you know, just replacing stuff. So we got nice new grips, grip glue. Gotta clean this grip glue off, that grip glue off, then we'll install the new ones. Started with cleaning off all that residue with just some like goof off spray that I got. I tried to use a razor blade earlier off camera, but it didn't really work that well. Like it got the bigger stuff, but not the nitty gritty. The goof off, it also was okay. So then I ended up just using very high grade sandpaper. Like, is that what it's called? High grade. And then some more goof off. And that seemed to do the trick enough where I'm satisfied, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. I just needed to have a good surface for the new grips. So I applied the grip glue and it was a lot runnier than I thought. So some dripped and I was like, oh shit, all right, I gotta start getting this on. And it was so hard to get on. Oh my God. I'm literally just like, you could see my face getting red for me just trying to push it through, right? I'm like shedding layers, like leaning on the bike, just trying so hard to get this grip off where I'm like, oh my God, I gotta pull it off because it's gonna dry partially on, right? So now I'm trying to pull it off. My face is getting redder, right? And I even enlist my brother's help to try to pull the grip off because it's just so crazy on there. Like this glue was absolutely not necessary, right? The two of us are just using all of our strength to try to pull this grip off of it, right? I'm getting worried that it's like glued on halfway and I just ruined it, right? But with enough perseverance and cursing, we were able to slide it off enough where I could just do it by myself, and I shoved in that flathead screwdriver from earlier and I got it off. So cleaned off all that glue because I was like, we do not need grip glue. That's ridiculous. You don't need grip glue at all, right? So clean that all off, and then I retried again. But this time I started with the throttle side, right? And I found out that actually if you kind of use like the suction in the back, right, because it's exposed with your hand, it really helps to push it forward. So that was working a lot. It was nice. And it was kind of a slow and steady process. I'd have to use a lot of strength to maybe move it a centimeter in, but it was working. And I also tried this kind of folding thing. You could kind of see the edge of it is folded. It seemed to give it like more strength to pull itself forward. So I kept doing that, and you know, inch by inch, we ended up getting that grip on. My phone died during the time lapse, so you missed the end of it and me reassembling everything, but that was horrible. There is literally no need for grip glue. They're so tight on its own that it's just, I'm sweating. I had to take my sweatshirt and beanie off and everything, but it's done, thank God. I accidentally broke this in the process, so I super glued that. I accidentally made a tiny little tear there, so there's that, but it's done. Anyways, on that note, I'm done for the day. I don't know how long this video is so far, so if it's long enough, goodbye. Thank you for watching. If it's not, see you next clip. Bye. It's another day, and we have just a couple things left to do on the SV. Just two things specifically. Need to fix the ignition lock cylinder so it fits into that hole right there. If you see right there, it's just a little too low for it. So if you actually try to turn the key to the lock position, it won't work because the cylinder can't go into the cylinder from the ignition thingamabob barrel, whatever this thing is, won't go into the actual hole on the frame. So we need to fix that. And along with that, we need to take care of this headlight adjustment screw because it's a little too long and it is scraping against the steering damper, along with, I guess, the plastic housing of the headlight. But that one, not so much. I think it's just touching. More importantly, that screw is scraping. You can see how it's already starting to wear into that. Not good. We need to take care of those two things, and we're done. Like, we're actually done with, I think, the build, quote unquote, series. People always say that. People always say they're done. I bet you I say that, and then the next video will be like, hey guys, but whatever. I genuinely think that should be it. And then moving forward, I'll just do a couple upgrades here and there. I know, like, the brake light doesn't come on, but that's like a whole piece I gotta upgrade, so that's not really gonna be a part of this yellow build series. Anyways, I am rambling, so let's get started. I'm hoping that I can remove this without actually like lifting the wheel or anything, just because this is all clamped down pretty well. And I think when I've had this undone, it never, like, I don't know, the forks never like sunk in or anything like that. They're held in pretty well. So I'm hoping that I can remove this and just slowly remove this upper triple tree, and the forks will just stay in place. Fingers crossed. I'm going to do it very, very slowly just to make sure I don't like remove it and then the entire front end collapses. Hope to God that's not it. But yeah, need to remove it. Please, please work. Okay, so far so good. These guys, loosen them up. Loosen these guys up. Loosen the handlebars off. And it's still standing. Thank God. Okay, so I just gotta pry these open as I slide this whole piece up, and the ignition should come out with it because it's bolted into this upper triple tree clamp. I don't know, dude. There's so many words for this. Okay, it's a very unorthodox solution, but I used these two to wedge these open to give it some more leverage so it isn't clamping. And now I am slowly, inch by inch, pulling it out. And it seems to be going good. There's a gap underneath here. The forks have not moved. The ignition is coming out with it. So all I can say is I am a genius. Moving on. This looks insanely freaky, but it's working. Got this guy out. Now I just need to trim down this part. I'm thinking 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to start with that because when I was looking at that little hole in the frame, the cylinder coming out of this lock seemed to be 1/8 of an inch too low. So I'm going to start with cutting 1/8 of an inch, put it on, test it out, see if I need to adjust it from there. Okay, so I have two choices. I can either trim these guys down, or I could trim the actual parts here in the ignition. I'm going to think about it. I'm not quite sure yet. I'm going to look at both, and I guess next clip you'll see what I decided on. If you guessed the upper triple clamp, ding, 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 you're right. It's actually a lot easier to trim this because the ignition had, like, I don't know, some weird parts to it, and it would have just been a lot worse to trim. So I ended up just using a Dremel, and I measured 1/8 of an inch, and I just started cutting, right? Pretty simple. I drew the line out and just started cutting. I got one piece off, and then I started measuring the second one, right? Same thing, drew on it with the Sharpie, checked everything out, and then started dremeling that second piece. And I kept referencing the first one, just eyeball leveling to make sure they were good. I got gloves too, kind of late to the game with that, but I was like, safety, right? Finished dremeling that second piece, give it a quick little sand, and we were good. This is all done. I cut both of these little posts down 1/8 of an inch, and I also, off camera, grinded away a bit of this just to make this part fit with this little Phillips screw right here. just because it was in the way. So now it fits well. It actually even made the key ignition, this little black circular part, flush with this upper triple tree. So I'm a big fan of that. I think that's all I need. I'm really hoping. So we're just gonna put this back in and hope that I measured everything right. This is all installed now. I just gotta put it onto the forks, but I ended up having to put a washer into each of these just because there was a bit of a gap, because I don't think the threads weren't created as deep in here, and I don't have like a tap and die set. So I just, with the extra space I had, I just put in a single washer, but it's super solid, not going anywhere. Everything works. If I go to lock, little cylinder pops out. Now we just gotta put this back onto the fork, and let's hope to God my measurements were right. I am a god amongst men. Look at this, perfect. I wish I could show you how little resistance there is to go into lock. If I try to move it, this isn't tightened right now, but it's all locked. If I put it into the parking light mode, it puts that on. Oh, but it's perfect, literally perfect. It's off, lock. Beautiful. Oh, I'm so proud of myself. Patting myself on the back. Whew, cool. Okay, now I just gotta add all the bolts back here and torque them down. Now that this is all put back together and torqued down properly, I got it on lock right now. Acting as it should. I can check that off my list and I can focus on this screw now. I'm hoping that I just have the right screw to replace here. So I'm just gonna dig around, pull this one out, try out different ones, and hopefully I don't have to run to the hardware store. Found these guys, which were too short, and I found these guys, which are coarse threaded, not fine. So I'm just gonna cut the original one down to the size of this coarse one, try that out, and then cut more as I need. And if I mess it up really bad, then I guess I'm going to the hardware store. So cutting first. That was pretty simple. I didn't even really bother filming anything. I just ended up cutting it down so it doesn't rub against this steering damper anymore. And then this little bit of plastic right here, I just cut like the edge of it off. And now when I actually sit down and turn the handlebars, it doesn't get caught on anything. And this still locks, as expected. So yeah, we're done. I'd like to say that this is finally complete. It's been a lot of work, and those who have watched all the way through, I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'm just some random dude, so I really appreciate you listening to me ramble. This doesn't mean I'm done working on this bike. That's just it for these parts. Because, I'm sure as time goes on, something will break. Knock on wood. And there'll be things that I'd want to upgrade or perfect more. So, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Until next time, take care.